Hi, this is Carrie and I'm joined by Mr. Satish Lakkaraju. He's the Global Head Air Freight and Pharma WIZ. Welcome, sir. So we're here at ACAAI Symposium. So my first question is going to be around NLP. So how do you think NLP is improving ease of doing business for the air cargo industry?
Thank you, Kavi. My pleasure to be speaking to Logistics Insider once again. I think the national logistics policy has come at the right time for a given that India is in the greatest of focus now in context of what is happening in China and what is happening in other parts of the world. And the national logistics policy should have probably come a little more earlier, but never too late. But it's very heartening to know that government is actually addressing multiple things through the national logistics policy. One, the morale of the industry is definitely high in view of the government recognition of the multiple stakeholders, and it's not restricted to the freight forwarders alone. Two, also, any reduction of cost in the overall frame of things will benefit the end customer. And whatever policies are today determined in any part of the world, if are looked at the customer at thing, which will then spike up a lot more in terms of consumption patterns is one. Two, any wastage in any field, whether it is in logistics or it is in any industry, controlling a wastage is a very important aspect. Three, if productivity can be increased through the national logistics policy, TAT times are going to be fixed in turnaround. Then the grievance addressal mechanism is the other important aspect which never existed. Associations never had a platform where they could log in and they could see that if they have lost a particular event, what is the status of that particular event. I think, and the last thing is the ULIP sort of it of integrating with multiple stakeholders is a great step, and I don't think we will hesitate to sign an NDA in terms of moving towards it. I think that so. In all, it's a great initiative.
Well, sir, NLP is going to, further accelerate digitalization. Is the air cargo industry ready to adapt digitalization at an unprecedented pace?
I think what we all need to understand is that India, after the independence, uh, has come a long way. But where the challenge comes as far as India is concerned in terms of standardization. Today, what you will notice is that close to 75 to 80% of the air cargo industry is managed by small and medium entrepreneurs. Now, for small and medium entrepreneurs to invest in terms of technology is not an easy job. So, how can government one help more people to adopt, and what would be the incentives to adopt? Because if that has to be addressed, that there are a few large players who can look at it, but how do you attract smaller players to come into it? Or alternatively, if there is a platform which can be given on used basis, which basically means that you, instead of investing for the whole technology part of it, if for every shipment you are able to use the technology and pay for it, that is the other model that the government should be looking at, and that will speed up the adoption at a larger fast pace.
Well, sir, lastly, a much talked about topic, which is the government's withdrawal of the GST exemption on air freight export. What do you think is going to be the impact on the industry, and do you stand by the government's decision to to withdraw the exemption?
Well, in India, if you know that when you give some benefit and you withdraw the benefit, there is going to be resistance definitely. And the exemption which was there when was withdrawn, there was bound to be unhappiness in the industry because the GST coming in, especially in the air freight, is a larger burden not only for the exporters in one way but also for the freight forwarding community because there's cash outflow which is substantial. And in the air freight, the sad part of it is that it's 18% against an ocean freight which is 5%, which then makes it quite difficult for the funding to happen. And looking at the government's mood at this point of time and their rationale beyond the GST, I don't think they will want to go back on it, honestly. But the challenge that one will face from the freight forwarding standpoint of it is that they will have to compete now with the consolidators because the consolidators offer a door to door product And I think that is something which will also be. So there are two things that are going to happen. Is one is the consolidators versus the freight forwarders, and two is the additional cash flow. And the last thing is the dollar being at 82.40 puts on a larger benefit to maybe the exporters for export, but then creates a larger constraint to the freight forwarders.
Well, thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.